Wait, a priest and a woman in love. And not just any love, a forbidden love that could destroy reputations, break faith, and change an entire town forever. Before we begin, make sure you hit subscribe right now, because the story you're about to hear is full of secrets, betrayal, passion, and twists you will never see coming. If you enjoy dramatic stories like this, you absolutely don't want to miss the next ones. Because tonight's story is about Katherine and Father Isidro, and the kiss that changed everything. In the quiet Spanish town of San Lorenzo, where church bells echoed through narrow stone streets every morning and every secret seemed to travel faster than the wind, there lived a woman named Katherine Valdez, a woman whose beauty was only rivaled by the sadness that lived quietly in her eyes. Katherine had arrived in San Lorenzo only a year earlier, yet the town had already woven her into its endless tapestry of gossip, admiration, and curiosity. She was elegant, mysterious, and always dressed in simple but graceful clothes that made her stand out in a place where everyone had known each other for generations. No one truly knew where she came from, only that she had purchased the old Montoya house on the hill and had begun rebuilding it stone by stone, as if she were trying to rebuild her life as well. The townspeople often whispered about her past, speculating that she had fled heartbreak, scandal, or perhaps something even darker, but Katherine never responded to rumors. She simply walked through town with quiet dignity, greeting everyone politely yet keeping her distance, like someone who carried memories too heavy to share. Every Sunday morning she attended Mass at the town's small church, and that was where she first truly noticed Father Isidro. Father Isidro had served the parish for nearly 10 years and was known as a devoted, compassionate priest who believed deeply in kindness and forgiveness. He was not old like many priests people imagined, but rather a man in his late 30s with thoughtful eyes and a calm voice that made people feel safe, as though their burdens might become lighter simply by speaking with him. The first time Katherine saw him speak from the pulpit, something in his words reached her in a way she had not expected. He spoke not only of faith, but of loneliness, regret, and second chances. His sermons felt less like lectures and more like quiet conversations with the soul, and Katherine found herself returning to church each week not only out of faith but out of an unspoken desire to hear him speak again. At first, their interactions were simple. A polite greeting after Mass. A few brief words exchanged near the church door. But slowly, those brief moments grew longer. One afternoon Katherine visited the church to light a candle, and Father Isidro happened to be there arranging flowers near the altar. He looked surprised to see her outside the usual Sunday service, yet he greeted her warmly. They spoke for a few minutes about the town, about the renovation of her house, about how peaceful San Lorenzo seemed compared to the cities she had once lived in. That conversation lasted barely 10 minutes, yet when Katherine left the church that day she realized something unsettling. For the first time in many years, she had felt calm. Days turned into weeks, and their encounters slowly became more frequent. Sometimes Katherine would stop by the church in the afternoon when it was empty. Sometimes Father Isidro would visit the hill to bless her home during its restoration. Their conversations were always respectful, always appropriate, yet something deeper quietly grew beneath the surface. They spoke about books, about music, about childhood memories and dreams that had never come true. For Father Isidro, Katherine was unlike anyone he had ever met, intelligent, perceptive, and carrying a quiet sadness that he felt strangely compelled to understand. For Katherine, Father Isidro represented something she thought she had lost forever, a sense of trust. But San Lorenzo was a town that watched everything. And it did not take long for whispers to begin. At first the gossip was harmless. People simply noticed that Katherine seemed to spend a lot of time near the church. But gossip in small towns grows quickly, feeding on imagination and suspicion. Soon some began to question whether their meetings were truly innocent. Others dismissed such rumors, defending Father Isidro's reputation fiercely. Yet whispers continued to spread like smoke through the narrow streets. Neither Katherine nor Father Isidro seemed aware of how much attention their growing friendship had attracted. Or perhaps, they simply pretended not to notice. Because deep down, both of them already sensed something dangerous was beginning to take shape. The moment everything changed happened on a rainy evening in late autumn. The sky had darkened early that day, and heavy clouds hung over San Lorenzo as Katherine walked quickly through the streets toward the church. She had not planned to go there that night, but something inside her had pushed her forward, an unexplainable urgency she could not ignore. When she reached the church doors, she found them slightly open, the warm glow of candlelight flickering inside. Father Isidro was alone, sitting in the front pew, reading quietly. He looked up when he heard her footsteps. For a moment neither of them spoke. The rain outside grew louder against the stained glass windows. Katherine approached slowly and sat beside him. "I hope I'm not disturbing you," she said softly. "You never disturb me," he replied. Those words hung in the air longer than either of them expected. For the first time since they had met, the silence between them felt heavy, almost electric. Katherine looked down at her hands, struggling with something she had clearly come to say but could not yet find the courage to express. Father Isidro noticed the tension in her voice. "Katherine, is something wrong?" She hesitated. Then she whispered something that would change everything. "I think I'm running out of places to hide from my past." What she revealed that night shocked Father Isidro. Katherine confessed that she had once been engaged to a powerful businessman in Madrid, a man whose charm had hidden a cruel and manipulative nature. When she discovered the truth about him, his lies, his corruption, the people he had harmed, she tried to leave him. But leaving him had not been easy. He had influence, money, and a dangerous obsession with control. Katherine had fled Madrid to escape him, hoping San Lorenzo would be far enough away that he would never find her again. Father Isidro listened carefully, feeling both compassion and concern. "You're safe here," he assured her gently. But Katherine shook her head. "I'm not sure anymore." That was when she told him something even more disturbing. 2 days earlier she had received a letter. No signature. Only one sentence written inside. "I know where you are." The church suddenly felt colder. Father Isidro realized that Katherine's past might not be as distant as she had hoped. And yet, even as fear began to settle in the room, another emotion quietly emerged between them. Because in that moment of vulnerability, Katherine looked into his eyes with a mixture of trust and desperation that neither of them could ignore. And without realizing it, Father Isidro placed his hand gently over hers. The touch lasted only a second. But it was enough to make both of them freeze. Because in that single moment, they both understood something they had been trying not to admit. The connection between them was no longer just friendship. It was something far more dangerous. Days passed after that night, yet neither of them could forget what had happened. Father Isidro tried to focus on his duties, telling himself that his feelings were simply compassion for someone in pain. Katherine tried to stay away from the church, convincing herself that their closeness had been a mistake. But some emotions cannot be buried once they awaken. One evening, as the sun set over San Lorenzo and golden light spilled across the town square, Katherine found herself walking toward the church again without even realizing it. And inside, Father Isidro was waiting. When their eyes met across the quiet sanctuary, both of them understood that whatever had begun between them could no longer be ignored. They spoke softly, honestly, admitting feelings they had both tried to deny. And then, in a moment that seemed to suspend time itself, Katherine stepped closer. Father Isidro did not move away. Their faces were inches apart. And before either of them could stop what was happening, Katherine and Father Isidro kissed. A single kiss. Brief, but powerful enough to change their lives forever. Because what they did not know was that someone had been standing outside the church doors, watching everything. And by the next morning, the entire town of San Lorenzo would know.